Welcome. Thanks for joining us. If you are enjoying this content, please like, share, and subscribe. It helps joy travel. We are meditating today on a fantastic subject, part of a new series. And the title of the new series is The Entire Human Race. And so all of our sisters and brothers, all of our kin. And the title of the talk today is Kin, with an exclamation mark after it. And so just to sort of notice, whom do I consider my kin? And just as an opening invitation, just check in and just notice, whom do I consider my kin? And Yogananda would playfully say, do you consider your kin us four and no more? Or are you willing to expand your awareness gradually? For most people, it happens gradually. So that you begin in a meditation community, for example, to learn to look upon everyone as my sister, my brother, and eventually myself. Everything that I'm seeing is simply myself. And then in the midst of daily life, to gradually expand so that everyone we look upon, those we adore and those we find deeply challenging, they too are my kin. They too are myself. When we have that awareness, the yogis say it's possible to live always in pure love and in the absence of fear. If we lack that awareness, we will always live in fear. Always. Because we will be living with the illusion of separateness. With separateness comes fear. With identification with the ego, with the illusion of the separate individual self, fear is present. And as soon as we connect with the one pure consciousness, with the interconnectedness of all of life that supports all of us, love is present. In the presence of love, fear cannot be. It melts away. The same way that in the presence of light, dark cannot be. And there's no fight. There's no struggle. You just walk into the room, you turn on the light, the darkness is gone. The light is. And so for each of us, for all of ourselves, for our heart, our body, our mind, and everywhere that we are simply invited to be the light of awareness. So then there's no struggle, there's no pain, there's no anguish. There's simply, I'm turning on the light of awareness. The light of awareness is here. So the title, The Entire Human Race, comes from Howard Thurman, who quotes that phrase from Olive Schreiner. And so I'm going to share with you a little bit about Howard Thurman's connectedness to Olive Schreiner, a little bit about who he was and who she was, and why there's this incredible lineage of inspiration that flows through them and through many other beings as well. First, I will share with you that many, many spiritual teachings and many spiritual traditions recognize the oneness of life. And so in the book of Acts, this is chapter 17, verse 6, the teaching is, God hath made of one blood all nations of human beings. The way that I phrase that for myself, God hath made of one blood all the peoples of the earth. Everyone that we look upon, they are our kin. They are ourselves in truth. The way that the Upanishads say this, and this is from the Chandogya, and these particular teachings are very beloved by Adi Shankar. Adi Shankar codified the non-dual teachings of awareness that we name Advaita Vedanta. And this was a passage that was particularly beloved and magnified by his awareness and his teachings. The Chandogya tells us all of life is one. In the beginning, there was existence, one without a second. And so again, anytime you need a reminder, one without a second. All of this is one without a second. The one thought, let me be many, let me grow forth. Thus, out of itself, it projected the universe. All that is is in that alone. And the way the Chandogya says this, that thou art. That's what you are. And so that particular way of saying it is very strong, very declarative, very direct and potent. That thou art. Another way of saying this is to connect with that affectionate mother reminding us of the truth. This is what I am. This one pure consciousness, this one pure life. This is what I am. That one is here. That one is taking care of me. Through all appearances, this does not mean that we will not face suffering and pain and difficulty and all the contrasts of time and space. It does not mean that others will not face suffering and pain and difficulty and all the contrasts of time and space. But it does mean we recognize in and through and as all of it, there is only the one without a second. And that one is taking care of everything and everyone. And each of us, as we connect with that one, is then invited to give ourselves to oneness in the way in which each of us is called to do that. So each of us is invited to be the energy of love in action. Each of us is invited to be the liberation that is possible through karma yoga. Always. Right where we are, right in the midst of our daily lives. So Howard Thurman, who was a wonderful mentor for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a wonderful mystic, an amazing spiritual teacher, was deeply inspired by a writer named Olive Schreiner. So he came across her writings when he was about in his mid-20s, and he read her writings through his entire life. And then near to the end of his life, after having read her writings for about 50 years, he published a volume of her writings. And so he was deeply moved by her. She had mysticism, and she had a commitment to nonviolence, and she had a commitment to being of service in a way that included and respected and honored the dignity of all humans. So for her, she worked to include women so that women could be considered full citizens and could have the right to vote, for example. And so the passage that Howard Thurman puts at the front of one of his books, I'm about to read to you. And it has to do with this giving of ourselves to that which is larger than ourselves, which is something that Olive Schreiner did. It's something that Howard Thurman did. It's obviously something Dr. King did. And it's obviously something each of us is doing as well. Who does this self-giving benefit? Olive Schreiner and Howard Thurman says, this self-giving, regardless of the outcome that is visible within our individual life, this self-giving to that which is larger than us benefits the entire human race. And this is from Olive Schreiner, quoted by Howard Thurman at the beginning of one of his books. And you can kind of see, when he was in his 20s and he first heard her, he was electrified. And he read everything written by her and about her over the course of her life. You'll see why. So she presents a dream. And in this dream, a woman stands. And she can see there's a river between her and a far land. And the far land is the land of freedom. And she wants with all of her heart to cross to this land of freedom. This is where we pick up. She stood far off on the bank of the river, and she said, "For what do I go to this far land which no one has ever reached? Oh, I am alone. I am utterly alone." And reason, that old man, said to her, "Silence, what do you hear?" And she listened intently, and she said, "I hear a sound of feet. 1,000 times 10,000, and thousands of thousands, and they beat this way. He said, "They are the feet of those that shall follow you. Lead on. Make a track to the water's edge. Where you stand now, the ground shall be beaten flat by 10,000 times 10,000 feet." And he said, "Have you seen the locusts, how they cross a stream? First comes one to the water's edge, and it is swept away. And then another comes, and then another, and then another. And at last, with their bodies piled up, a bridge is built, and the rest pass over." She said, "And of those that come first, some are swept away and are heard of no more. Their bodies do not even build the bridge, and are swept away and are heard of no more. And what of that?" he said. "And what of that?" she said. "They make a track to the water's edge." They make a track to the water's edge. And she said, "Over that bridge, which shall be built with our bodies, who will pass?" He said, "The entire human race." And so you can see the way that some traditions would put this. Howard Thurman, when he was in his 20s and he heard Olive Schreiner read aloud for the first time, received a transmission of awareness, of consciousness, of energy from her. His entire adult life, he kept working with that transmission of awareness, of consciousness and energy. And then close to the end of his life, he passed that on in the form of a book that he edited by her. But he spoke about her and drew inspiration from her his entire life long. And just as she gave her life to this cause, which for her was the full inclusion of women, all women, so she quit an organization that was dedicated to freedom for women because it would not admit women of color. She had been a vice president in the organization, and she said, "All women," and she quit the organization. So these stories, these particular meditations, these dreams from Olive Schreiner, were read and chanted aloud by women who were working on behalf of the full inclusion of women and who were thrown into jail for their work. And they were tremendous inspiration to Howard Thurman for his service and his dedication. So some of you might know Howard Thurman was a co-founder in San Francisco of the first interracial church in the United States. And that was only in 1944, not very long ago. So he was dedicated to this church for the fellowship of all people, just as she was dedicated to freedom for all people. And it's very, very clear. Each of them understood, Olive Schreiner understood, men are not free until women are free also. And so it's not only women that are standing on the shore looking at the land of freedom. Everyone is on the shore looking at the land of freedom until everyone is able to be in the land of freedom. And both of them gave their lives to articulating the possibility of reaching beyond seeming division, reaching beyond what appears to separate humans from one another, and living in consciousness, living in awareness in the land of freedom right now. And so for each of us, they each articulate, this is necessary to practice what we have been meditating on. It's necessary to set aside what Adi Shankar terms the unhappiness of the ego in order to connect with the golden ripe fruit of the one pure consciousness. It's necessary to set aside clangor and discord in order to connect with harmony. It's necessary to set aside the incredible, extreme ugliness that humans are capable of, including each of us, in order to connect with the beauty that is our own true nature and is the true nature of everyone, independent of how they are acting now or how we are acting now. And when we are in contact with that, then we are in contact with the wholeness. We are in contact with grace. We are in contact with, I let go. I am free. I am glad. I am peace. And we are able to live that awareness, that reality, that truth, that realization right in the midst of our daily lives. We are able to connect with the truth and the reality that every single time we choose to disidentify with imperfection and to identify with the consciousness of wholeness and beauty and harmony and community and caring and connectedness. It is not for ourselves alone that we are doing that. We are making a track to the water's edge, and independent of outcomes, independent of what we notice right now. Who shall come after us? The entire human race. Thank God, and God bless us all.